peace tonight. Flow from me to you. Words of purest light, crystals in your gaze, to remind our hearts we open in your name. And when we start to fall, and when we lose the call, there's nothing more to do than call on you, love and gratitude. And when we start to fall, and when we lose the call, there's nothing more to do than call on you. When we forget to see our soul's deep mystery, there's nothing more to do than call on you, love and gratitude, love and gratitude.
So we only use 10% of
Love and gratitude, golden flower in bloom, bring us peace tonight. Flow from me to you. Words of purest light, crystals in your gaze,
Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome. Salam alaikum. Shalom. I'm reading you especially in this way because we're going to be having a very heartfelt conversation on just the variety of religions and a lot of the things that we're going through. But of course, before we go into our wonderful guest, Audrey Kitagawa, we're going to be having our heart-to-heart conversation. Are you okay? Are you settled? Had a good weekend, I hope. We had one. We had a little break. We participated in a Zoom retreat at Peace Village Learning and Retreat Center for Saturday and Sunday. So it gave me a kind of a pause for Saturday and Sunday. But I have to tell you that as much as I had my pause and I was participating in the retreat, I missed being in service for the day in giving and was realizing how wired we are to keep bestowing, 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 and that I actually like that. I'm not complaining. I actually like it. I appreciate it. I value it. I'm grateful for it, and I hope that you are also finding ways to be of service, whether it's service for the self or service for your family or service in the environment. I want to give a big shout out to Shaheen Mafi, who was so kind enough to FedEx us some masks, gloves, and sanitizer. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and your generosity. It definitely goes recognized. And so last night we had a wonderful conversation with the incredible Marianne Williamson on God. And I wanted to actually go on for such a longer period of time because there were parts of her book, A Return to Love, that we had captured in a video that just opened up my heart. It just was each sentence, each line had such a fragrance and a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. I just wanted to pause, but because we only had an hour or so, that I had to keep moving on, which I really don't care for. The good thing is that this isn't ABC, NBC, or CNN, so I can actually go on an extra 10 minutes or so, but it's just still, I want to honor everyone's time because we have a specific time line for the programs. So last night, after our conversation with Marianne, I called two of my buds, Reverend Sylvia Sumter from Unity of Washington, D.C., and Dr. Kanu Kogot. And I put them on a conference line for the three of us to just catch up and see how we're all doing. And they were watching the show as well yesterday and made some very lovely comments. What was interesting is that Kanu sent me a separate text and Reverend Sylvia sent me a separate text. And both of their texts were the same sharings about their experience of yesterday's talk and yesterday's meditation and yesterday's time together. So I decided to conference call us in, and the three of us had this heartfelt conversation. And there's nothing more refreshing than to be in a role of leadership and influence and be vulnerable. I think one of the most profound aspects, and maybe one of the things that this time is asking us to explore, is the power of vulnerability, so that we don't have to pretend to be too perfect, but we can be proud to be imperfect with the intention to become perfect. And it's been really, really, really rich for me to have my friends that I can talk to so authentically with. So I was sharing with them about how this isn't the time for petty things. And I can still feel like little things in my heart that still gets a little pinch. And like I was sharing with Marianne last night, Marianne Williamson, this is really a conscience cleanser. Something in the conscience is cleaning up. Something in our conscience is opening up. And we're being given a fantastic opportunity to do that. And so with the period of silence or solitude or introspection, or what we might be calling isolation, or what I call is exile, this is really a great opportunity to do the work, to do the hard work of paying attention to what these feelings are signaling to us as a personality. Now, when we look at the journey of religion, religion has been a tool to connect us to God. It's supposed to connect us to ourselves. It is supposed to inspire us to live a model life, a life of virtues, a life of values, a life of principles. And I'm still baffled by the mere fact that at a time when the world is in absolute crisis, the religious institutions also have to close their doors. Some pastors are struggling immensely with that idea. They're actually going, no, this is the time the churches are supposed to be open. The mosques are supposed to be open. Hey, all of our centers in the Brahma Kumaris are closed. Businesses are closed. So what is this time saying? I mean, we have to stand on our own 2 feet. There was something about this closing down and opening up that brought to me a great sense of, is it appreciation or conviction? And what it kept signaling to me is this opportunity of standing on your own 2 feet with everything that you have learned by all the teachers that has come on your journey, by you being truthful, by you being yourself. And being yourself is not always easy, especially when you're in a very large organization or when you are living in a country that requires particular ways or cultural norms of you, but you don't feel the same way. So I'm just asking you to think about what it means to be yourself. And I feel the importance of being ourselves, especially when we go to the texts of various religions. They're always reminding us to be kind, to be respectful, to be generous, to be loving. And have we become that? Or have we lost our way? And if we had the churches and the mosques and the temples opened to us, and there's still poverty, and there's still pollution, and there's still sorrow, and there's still abuse, now we're stuck with us, just ourselves. I can't tell you how I'm loving the smell of the nature, the peace in the nature. It's all coming back. Why? Because we're not hurting her. We're not hurting her. I feel like the religion of peace is it's upon us. It's coming upon us. And we're also in need of a real profound awakening. So, I love to do these amateur videos, right? It's not that I don't have anything better to do with my time. It's just that when I do have time and I happen to be on my smartphone, I think about the talk for tonight. And I think about what we could actually offer to create more clarity and more understanding. So enjoy this very simple video that I put together, and we'll get our guest on, Audrey Kitagawa. Thank you. If you're like me, and so many of us, we have sought to find a deep meaning on the path of religion. Perhaps we've wondered at times what it would be like if we were there, if we walked with the prophets, if we felt what they felt. Have you ever imagined what was going on in the particular time when Judaism started, or Christianity, what was happening on the land? Have you tried to look at your life now to see what is needed on the land? We're now plagued by a virus that has impacted the entire world. One specific virus has influenced and touched the minds and the hearts and the souls of billions of people around the world. The speediness of life has slowed down. We're no longer rushing here and there. For what? Maybe we don't know. For the glories of life, but instead
There's been a lot of sorrow. There's been poverty, conflict. There's been a lot of pain. The pollution has increased, and there's a call to God at this time. The temples are closed, the churches are closed, the mosques are closed, and we're all at home, grappling with our connection to God, to Source. So where do we go? Why is it that all religions have spoken about kindness and love? What has happened throughout time? Did we lose something in the soul? In this time of isolation and incubation, is it bringing us forward to a world of harmony and beauty, a golden age at time that we so frequently dream about, sometimes talk about? Perhaps. So is this our time for silence? So we can find a world of beauty, create a world of beauty. Is it time for us to go inwards, to experience God's light, God's essence, God's peace, God's purity? It feels that way, doesn't it? We've been searching for so long, and outside of ourselves. This isolation, this introspection might be our second chance to bring forth the virtues, the love, the peace, the qualities needed for the world today. So let's take some time and reflect. Who am I? Who do I belong to? What do I need to do now?
Did you like that video? I put that together today before the show. I thought that it would help us to kind of look at the journey of religion in a quick glance. And I was thinking about my own life, my father being Hindu and my mother being a Roman Catholic, and being raised without any particular being in any religious doctrine being enforced on me. But I used to really have this deep, quiet quest about why is it that the interpretation of God is so different for all of us? It was always a very interesting question for me. I mean, here's my dad with Krishna and my mother with Jesus on the cross. And I was like, well, who do I choose? Who's got the answer? Who's the right person? Right? And so I feel like this particular period where whether you're the president of the country, whether you are one of the most prolific religious leaders, Pope Francis made his Easter address in the Basilica to no one except on live stream. T.D. Jakes has this audience of thousands. There's none except for his staff. Joel Osteen, the list goes on. We even had to cancel our meetings in Mount Ava, India, where 30,000 people attend every year for different events. What's going on? What is the role of religion today? My dear friend Audrey Kitagawa has been someone that we've been like two ships in the night. We will pass because of an event or a program. I would hear of her, and the last time that we were supposed to be together was on a pilgrimage that we were supposed to go. I remember when Ben Bala was asking me, come, Sister Jenna, it'd be so great to have you. Audrey Kitagawa is going to be there. You guys will have a lot to talk about. And I said, yes, I know, but just something turned out that all the cards just weren't stacked up for me to go on this pilgrimage. that they went on about a month and a half or 2 months ago. But Audrey's played a very profound role in building friendships with various religions around the world. And as the chair of the board of trustees of the Parliament of the World's Religion and chair the Parliament's UN task force, Audrey is no small cup of tea when it comes on to understanding the role of religion and the path that it has to pave in this particular time. So it gives me a great, great honor to welcome my sweet sister, Audrey Kitagawa, to our little 1 hour, or our little, we call it our spiritual vaccine, Audrey, because we need to find a vaccine for these times that we're in. So warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Sister Jenna. Thank you for the privilege of being with you this evening. It is always joyous to be with my Brahma Kumari sisters. And as I traveled around the world, it always gave me great comfort to see a Brahma Kumari's headquarters, whether it's in Nepal, whether it's in Australia. I mean, you name the country and the Brahma Kumaris are there. And it is always like a homecoming in my heart, even though I may not have the opportunity to stop into the center. Just seeing the Brahma Kumari's logo and their beautiful insignia on the building gives me great comfort to know that your works are all around the world. And the important work of raising human consciousness to the higher realms and to be able to teach the Raja Yoga, the science of how we can use the instrument of the mind to reach to the higher realms of consciousness. And as my spiritual mother said to me many years ago when I met her in 1973, that our true purpose in life, our goal in life is God realization.
Yes.
So, yes, it is to realize the ultimate reality that
Indeed.
is at all times already within us. For this gift of life, the immortal eternal self, is a divine gift. And every moment that we live is an expression of that sacred life. And
Yes.
how we express that in our thoughts, our minds, our speech, our actions. My spiritual mother always said that God is love. So it is every moment that we live is an opportunity to actualize the living reality of the divine through
Yeah.
every thought, speech, and action.
Beautiful. So tell me, who was your spiritual mother? Is she still around?
No, we call her Divine Mother,
Mm-hmm.
and she passed away on May 22nd, 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And before she left her body, she asked me to take over for her to lead the spiritual family. So at that time, I had a very active legal practice. So suddenly I had my legal practice and I inherited the spiritual community, which sprung up around her. And she gave the most powerful expositions on the divine that one could ever have the privilege to hear. So the community just sprung up spontaneously around her because it was such a privilege to hear her expositions.
Now, how did you meet Divine Mother?
Well, I had just graduated from college and I was on my way to law school. And a friend of mine said, Audrey, I know you are a sincere seeker after God. So you must meet this lady. And so she gave me Divine Mother's name and her phone number. And I went to see Divine Mother. She opened the door, took one look at me, pointed at me, and she said, you cannot serve two masters.
Wow.
In my
He sounds like Daddy Janky, who you know passed away just 2 weeks ago.
Yes, I'm so sorry. And, it's these wonderful, wonderful, gifts that we receive of the master who appears and actually transforms our consciousness, opens our hearts and awakens our spirit to another reality that we have
Yes.
not really understood or had been aware of.
And what a blessing to find them. You know, sometimes I wonder, what's in the cards of individuals who bump into awakened beings and travel with them on the journey. Because I think a lot of people bump into awakened beings but go in another direction. But yet, what was it that made us travel with them? I didn't say follow them, travel with them. That we would garner so much that even we still don't even know how much we've taken because it's still unfolding. It must be unfolding in you because I know that I'm still learning things that I've witnessed through Daddy Janky. And I bet till this day you're still going, oh, I remember Divine Mother said this to me, right?
Well, what she said to me is that when I met her, and she sat down with me for 5 hours in this launch of the beautiful exposition on the divine, and I was totally riveted. And she did actually awaken my heart, and I fell in love with her. But she said, I am transmitting to you, spirit to spirit, heart to heart, infinite to infinite, and not mind to mind. Therefore, you don't have to remember with your mind anything I'm trying to tell you, because
Wow.
whatever I have transmitted to you will spontaneously arise as you need it. And she has been true to her word. Whatever I need of the divine transmissions that are all inculcated within me, they spontaneously arise when I need them.
Love
So,
that. I love that.
wonderful
So,
grace.
so how are you doing? We've been hunkered down for a few weeks now. How are you spending your days? What's it like? I believe you're in New York.
Yes, I am here in New York at the epicenter of the pandemic here in the US. And of course, you have to follow, public health advisories, because always you have to be mindful of others and not risk vulnerable people, or allow yourself to be a vector of any kind of virus. So we have been following the public health advisories, and of course, for my spiritual community, around the world, we also have quickly moved to Zoom. Uh, you know, so we stay in touch. We continue with our meditation sessions 6 days a week, and we actually conduct meditation and our sessions by Zoom. And I find actually that in many ways, attendance is up because people don't have to have the inconvenience of getting in the car and driving long distances or even short distances. It's amazing how much time we actually spend in our automobiles. And so they love the convenience of being able to see familiar friends and faces, but through the internet. And also, I think another surprising outgrowth of this technology has been a deeper level of intimacy. And I think somehow that element of a little bit of not sitting so physically close to another gives somehow a kind of opportunity to be more authentic. And that's been very interesting to observe.
Same here. We held a retreat, and half of the North America, Central America, South America, Canada was online. There were almost 1,000, and we had never had those numbers for the retreat like that. If we were even physically to be together, we couldn't put 1,000 people at the Peace Village Retreat Center. And I've seen the numbers increasing as well, and I have felt for me, like a deep sense of appreciation for relationships. Like they're feeling like, wow, this was important. Us being together was really, really important. How do you think how do you think the churches, the mosques, and the synagogues are feeling as well? Um, they're closed, Audrey, at a time when the world is in crisis. And generally, I like what Reverend Sylvia always says: a good a good shepherd takes care of his pasture. I'm going to get this wrong, because she's so good at the words. But she basically is saying like a good shepherd will take care of his flock, right? And I sent you a report that just came from the New York Times of, a pastor, a bishop that just passed away of the coronavirus because he wouldn't close his church. And he was thinking, nope, God's going to save us. I know God's going to take care of us. There's nothing more powerful than God. But he and his wife got the virus. He passed away, and his wife is in critical condition. We don't know how many in his congregation are sick. So the point that I'm making, these places are closed, but online, they're communicating more with each other in a different way. Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this will continue? Do you think this will change the whole meaning of buildings and harboring souls in these buildings?
Well, I think what this entire experience has done is allowed us to practice what this wonderful messenger taught Divine Mother. Um, and that was the first lesson in life is flexibility. So you have to be able to adapt. And actually, that's how bacteria survive so well, even though we throw every kind of antibiotic at it. It still, continuously finds ways to become super bacteria. So too, God gave us divine intelligence, which allows us to reach deep within ourselves to understand, as Buddha said, the external landscape is impermanent and it's always changing. So the constant change is, by the changeless changer, the divine is always changing the external landscape, the landscape of manifested form. And so we have to be able to practice flexibility. And so this has given us a wonderful opportunity to utilize the technologies that have been developed and find different ways to be together. So it's a deconstruction of structured thinking. And it is, in many ways, a process also of the spiritual journey to start dropping the inflexibilities of mind and to create the dilation of the lens of insularity to the global lens of engagement. So this entire process actually helps us to step into the dilated lens of the global family and actually allows us to do greater outreach, to know that all of humanity, is the flock. And we are all the shepherds to be able to, we are just instruments
Yes, I
in
love
the
that.
hand of God. So
I
we are
love that.
servants. We are not, we are
We're the kings
doing,
and the masters of anyone, so to speak.
yeah.
So, what do you think is the role of religion today? You have garnered such friendships with some of the most prolific, profound, powerful religious leaders throughout the entire world. And you've become their friend, you've become a colleague, a partner, an advisor. What, based on this particular scene that we're in, Audrey, what is the role of religion today in this particular age and time?
It allows us to tap more deeply into what the great masters have been telling us from the beginning. And that is that, we must love one another and we must develop the heart of compassion, loving kindness, that we must be able to operationalize these great messages in seva. That is selfless service. So, like Jesus said, the greatest among you shall be the servant of all. That means that we must give of ourselves to help one another. And in that, also, it's almost like a commandment that he gave, that you shall love one another as I have loved you. And so we are constantly in the great confluence of the evolutionary flow of human consciousness. It is to ever move us to the higher realms, to be in alignment with the universal spiritual laws, the immutable spiritual laws of love, peace, harmony, and joy. And all of our evolvement is to be able to implement and practice right where we are in the seemingly ordinariness of daily life. That is our holy ground to be able to practice here and now to find God where we are.
Beautiful. Do you think religion has failed mankind? And do you feel that individuals leading religious messages and traditions, do you feel that they are really fulfilling the vision of the prophet how it was? Or do you think that there's a need for something to change because the times have changed? Does the way that the interpretation of the prophet's vision have to change for us to get it, so to speak? I mean, there is poverty, there's pollution, there's illiteracy, there's greed. Before the coronavirus, America was going through this state, Audrey, where bullying and greed and anger and calling people names and people who are good people are being silenced. It was quite an interesting world. You and I both know that. And you kind of wonder, has religion failed its role? One. Secondly, are leaders fulfilling the vision of the prophet? Two. Or does even all of that have to change?
Well, first of all, in society, we have to see the context, the global context in which religions, culture, human beings, everything, is coexisting together. And, with respect to the poverty, I think we see on the global scale this disparity in the economic, paradigm that we have. So that we see the moderating balance of the middle class evaporating and the growing masses of the poor and the, push of the money and the power into fewer and fewer hands at the top, the so-called 1%. So it's time for us to really examine the entire economic structure that we have utilized and really bought into, and what that speaks to of our values and how far those values have brought us away from the material paradigm to away from our deep inherent spiritual nature. So when we value what you own, the latest, greatest, newest, hottest thing, and become very trendy, and we have become commodities in a commodified society, and the expression of our value is what we own. The brand names, the McMansions, the fancy cars, and that is where we get our sense of values as consumers. Then we have automatically devalued our true worth, which is priceless, and that is the sacred life that God has given to all of us. And it is a tremendous gift. And in this particularized form, it is our opportunity to remember to come back to the sacred and all that is sacred, because this divine life is in every sentient being, and how we serve and love each other. So the principles, the universal laws still operate.
Yes.
And this pandemic has given us the pause. It's like the stillness, the silence between the thought. And we are literally in the eye of the great hurricane, the great global hurricane. And Divine Mother used to have this photo of the eye of the hurricane on her wall in her living room. And she said, in the stillness is the power of God. So it's a silence. And so we are all on like a global pause. stillness. And it is a time to be in the stillness and appreciate the stillness, and to do this time of quiet reflection, to understand that we are beings, deeply spiritual beings, and we must continuously cultivate our inner life. And so this cessation of all of the activity, besides clearing up massive pollution globally, because we're not driving our cars, coal plants are not, burning coal, all kinds of things, and the city is, you can see blue
Pretty
skies.
peaceful now.
I can hear birds. I never
Me
heard
too.
birds.
That's what I was telling everyone, Audrey, that I could actually hear the birds instead of the convulsions of mufflers and cars.
Yes, and so it's like the stillness has allowed us to hear nature.
Yeah, and I love it.
Nature.
I was giving a session to Turkey to some folks in Istanbul, and I says, none of your name brand bags are going to mean anything. They don't mean anything to you now, do they? Your shoe with the red at the bottom means nothing. All of that fancy stuff means nothing. All you have now is you. Now, looking at all the religious leaders in the world, the ones that you know, and taking into consideration maybe the deep soul searching they must be doing as well. Can you imagine? They are doing some deep soul searching as well. Can you share with me a little bit about what you're hearing from them? What are they telling you that they are realizing or they're processing right now?
Well, I think the deeply spiritual leaders are, in many ways, there is a profound peace, because there's also an acceptance
Yeah.
about the impermanence of life, and that, everybody, whether you're a spiritual leader or not, we are all on a sacred journey. And that sacred journey exculpates no one from having to do the inner work. And so, in all the different ways that we are compelled to go more deeply into the self and to cultivate self reflection and to be willing to do the ceaseless, fearless self examination,
Mm.
is a very important aspect of one's spiritual evolvement.
Yes.
And so the duty to ourselves, regardless of what title you may have, remains. Because if we consider ourselves to be members of the human family, we are all under the responsibility to step into those shoes of responsibility and to undertake that hard journey of self examination, self reflection. And all the great teachings are already within us, and we must seek it within.
Does the self-examination, is it so purpose to lead us back to the remembrance of God, one? And the second thought is, what do you think, Audrey, is God's role at this particular time?
Well, God is the eternal witness to all there is, and is helping us to, really do that ceaseless, fearless self-examination. And so God has an eternal place, and the infinite myriad expressions of the divine through each individual who has the gift of the divine within them. Because every breath we take is a breath of God. Every heartbeat we have is the heartbeat of God. And God is within us, and this very life we have is the divine life. So it is our opportunity, as we dance in this particularized form and structure, to be able to be the instruments of the divine, but humble instruments. Because Divine Mother used to say, you cannot make a drop of blood. You cannot make a blade of grass. And we did not create the moon and the stars and the sun, nor did we create the orbit. So God, the infinite mind of God, cannot be known by the finite mind of man. So it is very important that as we move through life on our sacred journey, individually and collectively, that we must always develop that humble heart, humility. And in all the technologies that we have created, they should be, expressions of our humility and not expressions of the egoic paradigm of power through strength and might and domination over others. But they should be expressions of service, kindness, all the principles that the great masters have taught us from the beginning.
Beautiful and well said. Very heartwarming. I kind of almost wanted to just pause to keep receiving what you were sharing. Yesterday, Marianne Williamson shared a deep need for surrender and also humility in terms of deepen our relationship with Source, with God, Allah, Jehovah, Khuda, Bhagwan. And what I'm thinking at this time, hearing your words, you said something about God is within us. And I believe that. I believe that when I'm awakened and I'm in tuned and I've served and invested in the universal principles and the virtues and the purity of the soul, he can't be hidden. She can't be hidden. The energy of God can't be hidden in my personality. And when I look at the world and I look at mass media, which is what we have mostly in front of us right now, it's not a judgment, Audrey, so please don't judge me. But I feel like a lot of God's children have merged him. Like they're not allowing the beauty of his presence to serve all around in the planet. And that's why there's poverty, that's why there's greed, that's why there's illiteracy, that's why there's pollution. It's as if we turn our backs to the energy of divinity that is in there, and we replaced it with an energy I call the algae: anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego. And that's become a kind of God that is now manifested in a form of materialism. The mansion you have, the car you drive, the person you're married to, the position that you hold. And souls have given so much thought energy to sustaining that illusion or that materialism or that level of intent that, I just don't see God as much as I want to see it in my brothers and sisters. And I know that's why I'm on this journey, because I didn't have it in me fully either. And I still don't have it 100%, Audrey, but I'm working on it, right? We're all working on it. So how would you answer that, where you can see that when somebody, for example, abuses a woman, steals, is a bully, when a young woman doesn't know her value and sells her body because she wants a name brand bag or to look like something or to wear jewelry? I would say those are moments in which they've turned their awareness away from the fact that they were born sacred and divine. How would you speak to that?
Well, these are the constant pairs of opposites that we see in life, right? The good, the bad, the happy, the sad. And we are always seeing on the landscape the light and the dark moving in different ways. And so we still have to be able to practice, we don't ignore that these are actual global issues. One of the results of the pandemic and having to be in social isolation is a huge rise in domestic violence.
I heard, yes, we talked about that today.
Right. So women, have been very much subject to violent households. And, I say women generally, but I think the statistics do show that women have been victims of abuse. So everywhere there is suffering.
Yeah.
And
do you ever sometimes get sad at the state of the world sometimes? You're not Pisces like I am, like you.
No, I'm Aries. Fire sign.
Okay, well, that takes care of everything.
So And you have an interesting symbol, you know.
Sure do.
So in any event, the suffering goes on, and it is also a call to us to challenge us. How, as servants moving through the world, do you want to help? And did you clothe me? Did you give me water? I was hungry, I was thirsty, and you did not give me water. You didn't visit me in prison. So these are all lessons in the manifest world to help us deepen our hearts and to develop that consciousness of compassion, and then to implement and practice, put it into practice. So, and it doesn't have to be in like huge, magnificent ways. Every moment that we live is an opportunity. So I said we should pay attention to the person who would say, "Good morning. Hi, how are you feeling today?" A loving thought that somebody wants to know. How are you? Or somebody who stands up on the bus and gives a seat. These simple acts of kindness cumulatively in every person's life becomes a statement and a legacy of that life.
So what it was, and just what you said, it touched me so much. And I just did a very rapid life review, something that I always share with our staff and our friends. Your good deeds will never go to waste. And I feel that a lot of folks need to always remember that their good deeds will never go to waste because they're competing with these illusions.
That's right. That's all it is, illusions. Correct.
Their soul's freedom and peace because of running after an illusion. So I've got an interesting question, and I had asked Marianne this one too. If God were here, let's say the big descension happened, like God descended on earth, how would you convey what he would want for us? How would you convey the message that he would want us all to get access to in the soul?
Well, if God has descended in such a way, he doesn't need me to convey any message for him. He would directly tell every person on earth. So, I would not be God's interlocutor, especially if he descended in such a grand way. And I'm sure he would definitely get our attention.
What if he came very quietly and just...
If he came very quietly? Well, there's a saying that the prophets are unknown in their own backyard at their own time, So that is also, part of the history of the prophets' lives. And some of them have gone to jail. I mean, so they have not been exempt from suffering either. So, and of course, great master, we just celebrated Easter and the resurrection.
He was crucified.
He was crucified. Yes. So the great master.
Audrey, have you ever wondered about that? Such a nice guy. Why would anyone have killed him,
Well, because the form and substance arises in the context of the culture, the society, the political, atmosphere.
In those days, yeah.
Right. So when we take on form and structure, we actually are we are born within the context of that society, wherever it may be in the long march of history.
So let's imagine the prophets are here. What would they say about the coronavirus?
Well, I'm sure the voice within us that arises in the silence, which is where the beautiful work of the Brahma Kumaris come in, and your daily practice to still the mind, to come into the silence. And each person so practicing coming into the silence will be able to realize and hear for themselves the prophet within them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So
I love that. So, Santosh, do we have, maybe we can go to questions and answers if anyone would like to raise a question to Audrey or myself, either on Facebook or YouTube, we can check on that. And why do you think, Zooming has become a big thing? We're Zooming over here, we're Zooming over there. Do you think we've become distracted in a weird Zooming way? I mean, are we still inside ourselves?
Well, somebody told me about Zoom Bomb, and I said, Zoom Bomb, what is that? I mean, all of the languaging of the technology and all of the, the emojis and whatever. I mean, you just can't keep up, right? But in any event, I mean, that is the wave of the future, though.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, I mean, supercomputers, and they will always have their benefits. And then you're going to always have the polarities, right? With the light will come the dark, and unintended consequences that we're finding through technology, etc. So whether technologies become very developed or not, the important thing is we must not have technology surpass our ability to have the moral, ethical grounding that allows us to utilize those technologies within that framework of proper values and ethics.
And I like what you said earlier on too regarding technology about bringing in the humility as well, and not letting it be ego driven like it was when we were so physically connected. So here's a question for you by Newton on Facebook. Hi, Newton. Nice to have you. Thank you so much for joining me and Audrey. We appreciate you. The question is, are you saying that separation and guilt feelings are dissolving and feelings of oneness are manifesting as a result of what we're going through? What's your answer, Audrey?
Did she say guilt?
Yeah.
Guilt and what?
So are you saying that separation and guilt feelings are dissolving and feelings of oneness are manifesting?
I think on some level, people are reaching out to feel more connected. But with respect to feelings of guilt and separation, that is what the individual may be experiencing. But collectively, is there such a thing as collective guilt? Is there such a thing as collective separation? Yes, I think there is in the manifest world. So we have had horrific situations in our human history. Has that been a cause of guilt insofar as the pogroms that have taken place? And if we don't feel remorse, if we don't have mechanisms of reconciliation, which is, what are courts of justice, because when we have such situations arise, people do want justice. And
what do you say about karma, though? There's some of us who believe in karma, that we sow what we reap. At a soul level, I could be traveling with issues that are unresolved of many lifetimes in the past. How does the karma of the soul, so to speak, connect with the justice system? Like if I see a child abuse that I don't want to see, and I don't want to say it's just the karma that that poor child has to suffer. I do wish to come in and do something to address the issue so the karma can stop. But what are your views on karma and justice? Well, karma your own justice?
Well, I think the law of karma is articulated in different ways through all the sacred texts. What you reap, you sow. Or like Divine Mother very simply said, you plant carrots, you're going to get carrots.
Yes.
So it's all the different ways that the, masters teach this law of karma, and in, whatever language it may be. But so it is, the law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
So that is an immutable law of, the universal spiritual law as well. Mm-hmm. And so if we understand that whatever action, whatever thought that we put out into the world ultimately comes back to us.
Yes, yes. So justice is also a part of that as well. Somebody wants to go back to the early part of our conversation and ask you, if you can elaborate when your divine mother told you as you open that door, you can't serve two masters, Audrey. You're going to have to make a choice. Can you elaborate on what you came to realize what she meant?
It was almost like a prescient statement that I knew in my heart would come to pass. At the time that I met her, I was on my way to law school. And so it was going to be my first journey to Boston for law school. And it was something that I chose to do. I wanted to be a lawyer. And so my entire professional life, education, was to achieve that goal. And I did. And I became a lawyer. But, I also just inherently knew that the day would come when I would have to give that up. But of course, I also had a very beautiful mystical experience that already confirmed for me what Divine Mother had told me in 1973 when I met her. And I had this beautiful experience in my first year of law school. So even as I was studying to become a lawyer, I already had this beautiful experience where it confirmed that I would one day have to give up my legal career. And thereafter, and how that was made symbolized to me was I was taken out of my secular clothing and the ochre robes of renunciation were put upon me. And I instantly knew that I would then have to give up my law career. And then symbolically, the beggar's bag was put on me. And then I knew, it's almost like these telepathic messages that thereafter I would have to live solely by the will of God. And wherever it was God's will to send me, to take me, I would just have to be able to drop everything and go.
That was where your
And
surrender came in?
I'm sorry?
Was that where your surrender came in?
Yeah, it was just an acceptance. So this is what was revealed to me and I accepted. And in that sense, if you want to use the word surrender, because I wasn't fighting it, it was just almost like it was a given that this
It
was
was
going
like
to
the time, it was like for me, um, it was just the call when Daddy Yankee says come. I was like, okay. I had
yes.
no idea I would be lasting so long, almost 3 decades. I just went.
Yes. So, these things happen. And in and of themselves, they're part of the great mystery. But your life is being moved in ways that you may not understand at the time. But when you look back, I mean, it all makes sense. And so even though I was not told you will have to give up your law practice in 1992 or whatever, I was left with the knowing that when it was time to give up my law practice, I would be absolutely crystal clear. And it turned out exactly that way. So one night I was very late in my office, which was not unusual because I did a lot of trial work. And so I was working late at night and suddenly my law diploma that hung with 2 nails for 20 years on the wall very securely just dropped. And I looked at that
Signs from above.
and I just knew that's the sign I would have to give up my law practice. But you see, the glass didn't crack. So I also knew that whatever I learned of my legal career would stand me in good stead all the days of my life. And within a very short period of time, without telling any of my colleagues, not anybody in my family, I just selected a wonderful lawyer to take over my cases, take over my staff, and then just called the telephone people and the movers, and I was out of the office. It was so fast. So my mother called me. I was going to go to visit my mother and tell her that I closed my law office. Of course, that was very nervous for me because she worked very hard to put me through school. And so I told myself, okay, I'll visit her over the weekend. And then she called me in the morning and I picked up the phone and she said, yes. And then I knew she knew. So she wanted to know what happened. And I explained to her. She was very calm and she accepted it. And I thought, wow, that was easy. And then early the next morning, she called and she said, have you lost your mind? Have you gone crazy?
I would have done that to you too.
Yes, so it was a delayed reaction. She said, oh, I couldn't sleep all night long. What have you done?
What did you tell her?
But, she did come to accept because she knew that once I made a decision, that was it.
That was
So,
amazing.
yeah.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing this. Here's a nice question. As a lawyer, or as a lawyer, what are your thoughts of why is it so challenging to achieve social justice?
What the challenges are what? I didn't quite
Why
hear.
is it so challenging to achieve social justice?
Yes, it is very challenging because
Exactly.
social justice also operates within a political structure. So you have the politics involved because social justice is usually administered by the arm of the state. And so you cannot get away from the political situation. Also the cultural context of that time. So, it takes time for people's consciousness to rise to those levels where they come to accept that we do need to make amends. We do need to apologize. And so, those things are not quick in coming.
I get that. A physician would like to ask you, where should the power come from within the soul? Should not the power come from God?
Yes, the power always comes from God, but they have the ego is the troublemaker.
True.
The ego likes to think it's God and works out of the egoic paradigm, which is always a power paradigm. That's the egoic mind.
Yeah.
And so, but it is inherently comes from this deep understanding of its inherent powerlessness. So the way that is manifested, like for example, uh, having a gun in your hand, and I don't want to get into the controversy of gun control and all that, but when we need to, because also in my work at the UN, I was an international advocate for children affected by war. And I heard many stories of these young children who were involuntarily conscripted to be child soldiers.
Child soldiers.
Right. And they were drugged, and I mean, many, many stories, but tragic stories. But they felt power when they were given a weapon that could determine life or death to someone else. But that is a false sense of power.
Yes.
And so it really causes us to reflect all of the incredible machines and technologies of power that can eradicate life in mass forms now. And the lethality factor of our weaponry has gotten more powerful. So that is also a statement of the manifestation of the ego that is trying very hard to exercise its dominance through this powerful a power paradigm of dominance over another, or having the power of life or death over another. So, the power of life or death over another, that is really misapplication of one's life force.
And it's been going on for so long.
Yes. And, that comes from this identification of self-protection, territoriality, all of the problems that arise out of, identity of the self-protection of the self, in this form and structure.
As we come to a close to our wonderful conversation, have you ever had moments in your life where you just weren't in the best place? There were questions, there might have been self-doubt, Maybe you weren't feeling God as much as you know you have the capacity to. And even though you would think of Divine Mother and everything she's told you, it just couldn't move you. I'm sure you've been in that place at some point in time in your life. What did you do to get out of it?
Always, the practice of meditation is a very important practice because that sets a discipline. And so it is a training of yourself to come back to that one pointed focus within yourself and to sit in the silence, in the stillness, where you have awarenesses spontaneously arise that can really guide you. And so that practice I have been doing for most of my life and do not give it up because it is the part of the discipline, but also because there's so much benefit in that. And everything that happens in the external world is a reflection of the inner self projected outward.
Yes.
So I actually have to see what is it telling me about myself that I must self-correct, that I must come to understand better. So it also gives heightened awareness and a much more astute and keen sense of what is going on externally as a manifestation, a mirroring back to the self.
Yes.
So Divine Mother used to say, you're standing at the screen of life, you want to change the picture at the screen. But she said you're working backwards. If you want to change what's on the screen, you have to change the film. So
Wow.
it's constantly going back.
Your Divine Mother.
Yeah, to the film, because we're always at the screen of life trying to change what we don't like to see externally, but it's really the inner work to change the film.
Beautiful. So last question. There's a lot of fear in the minds of our brothers and sisters. What advice would you offer them to reduce the fear?
To reduce the fear, be of service. Seva, selfless service. So when you can, forget about the self and think of service, and like I said, it doesn't have to be in a grand way, but to serve, because God is in everyone and God is appearing, as the hungry, as the poor, as, the abused, and, or even the lonely. So it's lovely to pick up the phone and call someone and see how they're doing. And, so it's always this selflessness, that generosity of spirit that you can move beyond yourself and to share that moment in time of pure love for another. And that, yes, that is so beautiful. And every day that we live, every moment that we live, we can actually be the instruments of that beauty. Every moment that we live, what a grand opportunity and privilege to be able to do that.
A major namaste to you, Audrey Kitagawa. It was lovely having this heartfelt conversation with you about just a role of religion during this particular time. And maybe it's just not, it's things we've been saying for thousands of years. Be loving, be kind, be generous, which is seva. But definitely to get rid of this fear, I agree with you. Service is an essential tool. It's an essential practice to get rid of the fear. So I think everyone out there who's listening in, if you're a little bit nervous, little, look at it. Do something of charity. Do something that's going to help someone up. Donate to your favorite causes. As Audrey says, call somebody, talk to somebody. But just do something. Get out of your skin. Iron is charity, especially if it's for somebody else in the house. Just keep doing charity. It'll help. Audrey, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us? And I loved having you. Please come back on again anytime that you'd like. And let's talk more about this because I feel post-corona, there'll be a lot of need for individuals to really feel stronger and look for direction. Because I think there might be a lot of confusion after this and will be a need for some guidance. So let me know when you want to come and talk to that. Any final words for tonight?
Yes, I want to say again how joyous it is to be with you and to know that you provide, these wonderful platforms for people to receive uplifting words, inspiring words and messages. And I am going to give you a big air hug. Air hug.
Received. I'm missing that.
And when I get to see you in person, because social distancing is no longer in place, then I'll give you a real hug in person.
I'll receive it openly.
You are lovely.
Audrey, all the best. Om Shanti.
Thank you. Om Shanti. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So everyone, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Audrey Kitagawa. If you want some more information on her, just go to the World Parliament of Religions and look at all the great work that she's doing there. I don't know all of her Zoom conferences or Zoom meetings, but I'm sure it must be a lot. But just look out for her and keep up with her. She's got a good heart. I hope you liked today's talk. I've been very fascinated to look at the role of religion since we've been going through this. I've been speaking to so many individuals. There's a concern about its collapse. There's a concern about maybe the online form of teaching is what we've been wanting to do. Maybe it's a reminder that the fix, you've got to do it. You still have to be responsible for yourself. That no one's going to be able to liberate you. I mean, I can come and inspire you, Audrey can inspire you, but at the end of the day, you have to do the work. A surgeon can take care of an illness that you've got going on inside, but when he's done removing the illness, he says, now it's up to you to heal. It's a very powerful time, everyone, for you to begin to believe wholeheartedly in your love, your truthfulness, your potential, and even be vulnerable through it all. But as I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, it'll be a big fight. You're going to have to push yourself through like maybe you never have before. But don't give up. Don't give up. You'll be fine. Okay? All right, you take care of yourselves. And I'll see you tomorrow. Be good, be kind, be loving, and enjoy this meditation on letting go of all that ego identification and be safe. Thanks for joining us today. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. The time that we choose to be aware doesn't necessarily require me to just sit and meditate. But even while I walk and move around, I can be in a meditative awareness, which is awareness of the soul, the original, eternal, imperishable being of light. For a little while, I'd like to invite you to be present, to be here, and to be now. Allow your mind to settle in the moment, to relax. This meditation is about awareness. It's about becoming aware of your original and eternal self. It's about connecting to your truth. Let go of your name. And observe yourself feeling nameless. Let go of your gender to discontinue thinking you're a man or a woman. Let it go and observe how you would feel walking around without a gender. Let go of the role that you play and let go of the titles that you own. Observe how you're feeling as you are gradually letting go. Let go of your religion and put it aside just for now. And let go of your nationality and even the language that you're accustomed to. Imagine you have no name, gender, role, title, religion, nationality, or even a language. Ask yourself, how do you feel at this moment? And in this feeling, who would think of you and who would you think of? The Supreme Soul would think of you, and you, the liberated soul, would think of the Supreme. In this state of absolute freedom, I am truly who I am. A free, peaceful, pure, immortal, and eternal soul. Allow yourself to just be absorbed in this awareness. At this time,